arrived, I guess, early this morning in the United States, and quite a bit later in Finland. Well, I guess we're happy to be joined with Koltti, who I think a lot of people know from Iron Sleet, and even before that, Spiky Rat Pack. We're glad to have you here. We've been admiring and looking at your work, I feel, ever since we started our blog some like 10 years ago. Nice to have you.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. Thanks, Adam. And thank you, your brothers. Glad to be here.
Glad
and
to
it's
have you.
Yeah, it's 2 p.m. Almost 3, half 3 actually.
Okay,
in Finland.
Yeah, so that's like 7 hours. So that's pretty different. Are there different time zones in Finland?
No, there's just one.
Just one. Okay, that's what I sort of thought. Like, I guess in the U.S., depending on where you are, there are 3 different ones. So, like, if we're on the East Coast, but if you were in California or something, there's a 3-hour difference. So,
yeah, and Adam, for a while when he was doing his postdoctoral work in San Diego, it was always like a 3-hour time difference. So, like, even just us chatting together was could be a pain at times.
Yeah.
But it's easier now. But yeah, it's exciting to have you here. I'm excited to just talk about the hobby and that sort of thing. But I guess perhaps with that in mind, just for the sake of time, maybe we just get into the podcast thing so we don't repeat stuff or whatnot. If that's okay with you, I might start recording.
Sounds okay to me.
Separate. Yeah, okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dragged into Turbolasers, a miniature wargaming podcast from the people behind the blog Between the Bolter and Me. This is episode 99, and I'm your host, Eric Wire, and I'm here with my 2 brothers, Adam Wire.
Hey, everybody.
Greg Wire.
Hey, everyone.
And I'm really excited that we have a special guest with us today, Kari, or better known perhaps as Koltti, on Instagram. I'm happy to have you here.
Tervepä terve. And that was in Finnish. Hello, hello.
Oh, great.
Excellent. Yeah, really excited to have you here. People perhaps know you from all your work just throughout Instagram, as well as your participation in the kind of, I'm going to say, super group Iron Sleet of excellent, primarily Finnish hobbyists, as well as, you had an earlier blog called Spiky Rat Pack that, I don't know, was kind of around right when we started our blog Between the Bolter and Me. And yeah, we've been just following you for many years and are just excited to chat about the hobby and how things have been. But yeah, again, nice to have you here.
Thank you. Nice to be here. And thank you for inviting me to this
so one thing that
session.
one thing that I should say to like viewers and stuff, if you haven't ever looked at Spiky Rat Pack, you should go online and find it, because like most of the stuff is still up there and it is a great resource. I'm glad it's still around.
Yeah, it's kind of like a time machine to go there and check what happened like over 10 years ago.
No, it's
crazy to think it's been that long. But yeah, I guess maybe could be somewhere we could start with questions here. But yeah, right when we started our blog, which was 10 years ago, it was sometime around then that we discovered your work there, which lots of cool, I guess, Ink 28 sort of stuff, conversions and things like that. Can you just talk a little bit about how you started that blog and what it was about?
Yeah, sure thing. Well, many years ago, back in, I think it was 2006 when I came back to the hobby, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
I bumped in my old friend Mikko back in our hometown, Kannus, and we were like just sitting in a bar and drinking beers, and one of our this co-friend came to talk with me and said that, do you still do those miniatures? And I was like, yeah, every now and then, yes. And he was but there's Mikko, if you remember him, and he still does the miniatures also. And went there on his table and started chatting about Warhammer with him, and it instantly kind of like a clicked that there's my a friend who knows what I'm talking about, and from there we started like doing these co-projects. Like Mikko, he was and he's still a great sculptor, and he was sculpting these miniatures, and I painted them on this one Finnish forum, and we published them in there, all the diaries, how the things were designed and stuff like that. And at some point we found out or realized that I think we should maybe start blogging. And then we discovered the Spiky Rat Pack and started the blogger blog. And that was the start of the Spiky Rat Pack. But how I got into Inc 28 or Inquisitor 28 scene was like when John Blanche happened to bump in our blog and started chatting with us. He kind of asked us to come to visit Nottingham and the Warhammer Fest or whatever it was, Golden Demon event, I think, Games Day event, I think it was back then. And we went there and met John and had a really good chat with him. And when we came back from that trip, I think it was 2010, 11, I think, something like that. We started doing this Punk Moth scenario, for which we both Mikko and I started designing these groups of different henchmen around these Inquisitor characters. And that was I think the time when you also discovered our blog, Spiky Rat Pack.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, well, that's awesome. Like that John found your work and
it was
got to meet him.
Yeah, me and Mick, we have been like these big John Blanche fans for our entire life, and it was like bolt from the clear sky when John was like coming to write comments on your blog that, hey, yeah, guys, what's up?
It's like,
yeah, wow, that's
what? Yeah, that was like
had to be a bit surreal, but I mean, I can understand why. I feel honestly, both of your styles very much fit that gritty, dark aesthetic that he traffics in so well. Yeah. So, I can understand it, but that still in no way diminishes kind of the excitement and such behind that. But yeah, I feel that like particularly Spiky Rat Pack was, we found shortly after we started the blog, and I feel it was at that time that we were slowly starting to get more excited about sort of this Inc 28 style of things and just building stuff, painting it to kind of explore elements of the setting that we thought were neat rather than such a focus on what's the next codex book or how can we min-max rules and so forth. And I obviously like that style of things a lot better, and our blog ultimately kind of shifted towards that way relatively quickly. But yeah, Spiky Rat Pack certainly was a help.
It was
towards that end.
And it was different times back then, because when you think about the current like products that Games Workshop pushes, like every week comes something cool and interesting as that way. But back then there weren't that many like these basic pieces that you could use, so you had to be really like creative when you planned or executed something that you wanted to do. Like for instance, if you wanted to do an Inquisitor, there weren't that many like different body parts or faces, heads or stuff like that you could use. So you had to like really figure out which bits you wanted to use in the
I sort of feel like also because of that, at the time when they finally started to shift more into doing plastic like character models, like there were a whole slew of different ones that say Brian Nelson had sculpted. And at the time, since those were available, like you started to see them in like so many different cool conversions and stuff. Like the
fat Nurgle dude with the axe, I feel.
That's the classic.
Yeah, that's like one of the classic ones that it's almost like a rite of passage. Like you have to everyone has to kind of do something with that model.
We never actually did that. Maybe we should actually do that.
we probably should.
But yeah,
it's like an Inquisitor 28 boot camp.
Right. Because it is interesting, because those were like kind of some of the first like individual character models that were all plastic. Because before it was like maybe they would release a large like multi-part like kit for the regular troops and whatnot, but the characters were almost entirely metal. So that was kind of exciting. But it has only been in the last I don't know 5 years that they've released all the plastic Necromunda war bands, and it's like you're saying, like literally every week they're releasing a new couple of kits. So it is much different, and kit bashing is like easier than ever.
Well,
and I'm not going to say that the scale's always right, because Games Workshop shifts that around a lot, but it's still substantially easier to tack things together and make a convincing model without having to pull out like green stuff or modeling putty and do a lot of splicing and such.
Well, I feel there was also a time back then where you could sort of more conceivably be familiar and know like all of the different kits and what all the different pieces look like and were available. And now you really can't. And it's much more common that you see a conversion and it's like, wow, I have no idea where most of that stuff came from, but like that's cool.
And back then, I think one of the pinnacles that you had to do was to do a art scale Space Marine or true scale Space Marine.
That's true too.
Boy, it was hard back then, because you had like use different Terminator parts and like really use force to make it look good. And I think back in the days of Spiky Rat Pack, when I did my first true scale Space Marine, the Red Corsair Captain, it was really big like learning process how to do something like that back then. But these days you can basically use Primaris Marine body to make pretty much suitable true scale Space Marine.
No, it's much easier.
A lot easier.
No longer do you have to let's break out the Terminator legs and try and repose them, and
but I don't know. I haven't seen the new Imperial Guard or whatever, Astra Militarum or whatever they are calling them these days. But aren't they kind of like reaching the same scale like the?
Yeah, so I guess on this past Monday, I went and bought one of the Imperial Guard command squads just because I wanted to look at them and get a sense of what they've done. And they're pretty different from a lot of the other stuff. They're, in terms of scale, they're more similar to like the newer Sister of Battle plastics. And overall, they look pretty good. The thing I find most strange is the size of the heads of the models are very small, and they decided for some almost like unknown reason they were going to add the size of the female heads are even smaller than the male heads. And
Okay.
I don't really know why they did that, because they just look even
bodies
more
are the
awkward
same.
because their bodies are all the same. It's just the size of their heads differ. And I think
Yeah.
even the male heads are too small, but then when they make the female heads even smaller, it just looks really, really weird. So I don't quite know why they did that, but
That's Games Workshop always doing weird things, but that's it's fun. But
Does it look like? I was gonna ask if it looks like one of those new Imperial Guard could fit inside a suit of Primaris power armor, or do they even look too big to do that?
I would imagine if you would like line them up. I haven't looked that closely, but I would imagine they would probably actually relatively well like fit in a suit of Primaris armor. If you would line them up next to one another, the guard would look smaller, but then again, they're not in the larger suit of armor, bulky armor. So while they look nice, I sort of feel like they're not quite right.
I think that's something that's often done. Like the scale maybe at first glance looks okay because like the Primaris are obviously bigger, but if you like take into consideration that the armor is really thick plate and such, it's not as convincing. But with all that said, I still feel your Red Corsairs are some of my favorite true scale Space Marines.
They're very cool.
Yeah, I think they just fit the aesthetic and what I think of when I think of a Space Marine. And I think all the effort you put into it was worth it. And they're still probably my favorite.
Then they're like, I feel in terms of for like a Chaos Space Marine chapter, they look much more like sinister and menacing than most of the kind of cartoony, garish looking Chaos stuff the GW puts out. Like all the tiny little spikes and skulls and whatnot that you manage to put on yours, I feel goes a long way and gives a lot more, say, individuality to each of the models. Because you'd sort of like to imagine that each of these Marines have been around for like countless millennia. You'd think they would kind of each sort of do their own thing and be a little more individual, and like I think you capture that really well.
They don't have as much filigree either on the armor, which I think helps. It sort of simplifies the composition in a way.
Yeah.
And then also I think with the painting that you do, like that nice dull red just looks really nice.
Thank you. Yeah. It's kind of interesting the whole process when I was designing the red courses was that I wanted to make them each an individual like if they were just pursuing their own path towards the god of chaos, whichever it was, and they were just like bunch of guys to hit together just by the hatred of the Imperium only.
Yeah.
and the chaos. I wanted to keep it minimal to be shown outside, but more like it was like inside them, inside their head, the heresy and stuff like that. That it wasn't so obviously like coming outside with all the menacing spikes and stuff like that. Of course, there are some spikes in them holding the skulls and stuff like that.
That's a little more sinister. Like if someone saw them, they. But that's good.
I think that you've been a bit more reserved with them in that way. It makes it stand out more and be more impactful rather than just spikes everywhere.
And it's the skulls are like they are the real skulls. They are not like these emblems or like images in their armor. The armor itself it's basically the Primaris armor that has been converted a little bit to look like Chaos Space Marine armor with the spikes and the skulls. And the skulls are victims of their campaigns, and they are like their trophies, rather than like sticking skulls in their armor plates and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's pretty amazing how well your more recent conversions that were more based on Primaris, how well they fit with kind of your original ones, and I think that just speaks to your skill ability to kind of translate those things and through painting and converting and all that to make a very cohesive force, which I think is really nice.
Yeah, to be frank about the red armor itself, if I had to paint that red Corsair now with the same theme, I wouldn't be successful, because I have, like, whenever I started painting one, I had to relearn the process, because it was so much back and forth to make it look the way it does look. And that's one of the challenges whenever someone is like asking me on Instagram or Patreon, how do you paint your red courses? It's like, well, actually, it's not that simple. But if you have time, I can explain it to you. But it won't be fun. It will be pain.
Also, yeah,
that fits with chaos, right?
Yeah, it's certainly, like, looking at it, you can tell there's a lot of like depth and stuff in the red that, at least when I look at it, I think like that's probably a very involved thing. Yeah, it doesn't.
Do you have any plans to make more of them, or are you satisfied with where they are?
I have planned to do at least 2 more Marines.
Okay.
And at some point, I was planning on doing some Cultist too, but I kind of like it the way they are, like just a Space Marine army.
Well, yeah, there's always opportunity.
At least 2 Marines, and I might be trying to make a tutorial for the raid.
Okay.
People would be super excited, I imagine.
Yeah. Which I guess maybe we probably should have done this earlier, but yeah, so people should follow you on like Patreon and such, because you're started to make a lot of cool tutorials and such, which I think is exciting, and it's nice to get some of those step-by-step guides to see how you achieve some of these things, because it's not as simple as like just slap a contrast paint on things, and even though you do use some contrast paints. But...
Yeah, I do use them quite a lot, actually.
Yeah, I think
they are a very nice tool in the box. Not a kind of like a magic wand that you just whoosh and you have beautiful models.
Yeah, they tried to sell them as that, but they're not. Or I mean, you can do it, but I don't think you get like the effect you really want. But the fact that they're somewhat transparent kind of does give them a lot of flexibility.
Yeah,
well, I think go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. So you can go, Adam.
No, I was just gonna say, one of the things that I always thought was sort of remarkable, like your way of painting miniatures and such, like I would say it's almost immediately, at least to me, is almost immediately recognizable, where I can pretty clearly tell, like, wow, that looks like one of your miniatures, which I think is really cool, because particularly even now that you've started to spend more and more time painting a lot of Oldhammer stuff, it's still very distinctly your style, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, that's nice to hear. It's something that you develop in the years when you are in the hobby. I can say the same thing about your miniatures, that whenever I like scroll the Instagram and see a miniature, this is your miniature, I can instantly tell it. And it's nice to have like this distinctive style that people notice. And I can feel like there's some like differences between the 40k stuff that I've been doing when I was part of the Iron Sleet, and the Oldhammer stuff that I do these days. But there's still like some similarities between the styles.
Hmm.
I
Is
think
there
it's fun.
something? Or continue, Greg.
I was gonna say, I think it's fun to see all of these old miniatures painted in your meticulous and great style, as I'm accustomed to seeing a lot of those older things maybe painted by people who were when they were first getting into the hobby and didn't know how to paint, so they look bad. So it's pretty neat to see some of these kind of wonky old looking miniatures painted to such a high level. I like that a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's very fun.
Yeah, probably better. A lot of these models have probably never been painted so well.
That's
Which is
certainly
cool.
true.
It's a kind of well, like my life goal to make these old miniatures look good with the modern paint job. I feel like they're when they were made by Jess Goodwin or whoever sculpted them back then, they were like the pinnacle or very best miniature that were ever made back
Mhm.
then. And it's a shame that they are like showed in the attics or in the old boxes
Yeah.
and don't see the daylight
Well, a
so
lot of
often
them,
anymore.
Yeah.
they have a lot of interesting character that they don't seem nearly as, say, streamlined as a lot of the newer ranges of models do. And yeah, like if you really look at them, a lot of them do have little quirky, interesting details and stuff that, yeah, if you paint them nicely and put them on like a nice base or whatever, like as a group, they look like really nice. And
Well,
I
well,
almost
I
think the scaling was more consistent back then too. So like if you have a whole range of them, like they look really good together.
I kind of wonder if a lot of people in the hobby, if they've been into it long enough, they started out with some of those older models, and then after a while thought like, wow, those proportions are terrible. Those models aren't good. And then eventually, after being into it for a while, came back and it's like, you know what?
You
I
kind
do
of
love
like them.
those models.
Like in the new
Yeah.
models, proportions bad too, so it shifts around.
Because I
Yeah,
certainly, I am much more fond of them now than I had been, I don't know, 15 years ago.
yeah. Many say that it's nostalgia or something like that. That when you admire the old models, but I think it's just one bit of the things that draw me back to painting those. It's also the appreciation of the hand sculpting back
Yeah,
then when they were like sculpted in 1-to-1 when they're like doing these 3-ups these
Hmm.
days and sculpting things with 3D and doing the shortcuts to copy the different like
assets and
these
stuff. Yeah,
assets and stuff. And you can say those are 3D sculpted because they look like that. But back then, everything was made by hand, and you could like you could say which miniature was sculpted by who.
that's certainly
From those,
Yeah, I
like
true.
think that's
that
cool.
like the dwarves are made by Perry twins, and this
Hmm.
this range of chaos uh, champions are made by Jess Goodwin, and you could instantly know who had sculpted which model. But
That's
these
true.
days you don't know that, and Workshop doesn't
Well, yeah, it
include the
was
crates.
by the Citadel design team, and then people
Yeah,
cryptically on Instagram say like, "Oh, I was happy to be part of the team that worked on this," and like, oh,
yeah.
Yeah,
which
it's
yeah,
a bit sad.
It's
it's
a
a
shame.
shame.
It's a shame.
Yeah, because I think then with digital stuff, like you can just like reuse certain assets again. So yeah, it's just they don't. Even if one person primarily did it all, like it's harder to tell. There isn't the same like you can just tell an older Jess Goodwin sculpt or Brian Nelson or yeah, like the Perry twins, like you're saying. And there's something great about that, knowing that everything that's on there they did themselves, and it wasn't just like clicking to have it just appear. And yeah, they have a nice charm because of that.
Yeah.
Do you why the shift to Oldhammer as much? Like, Is there a reason for that, or just?
Yeah, it's everything goes back to the time when I refound the hobby, back to 2006, I think, when I came back to the hobby, and it was the old stuff that brought me back. I started painting the Oldhammer stuff, old
Okay.
orcs and old dwarves, and
Is that stuff that you had because you still had a bunch of that stuff? Or...
no, I actually didn't have that many old models with me, so I had to go through the eBay and buy old stuff back. I had this old dwarf, very small old dwarf army with the bookman rangers and stuff like that. And back in the 90s, I sold it to Mikko.
Okay.
Even I didn't know who Mikko was, but Mikko was who bought the
Oh my
whole
gosh.
army. There was middleman between us, but
Yeah.
But yeah, the Oldhammer stuff was the thing that brought me back to the hobby, and I shifted from there to do the modern 40k, and I did that for 10 years or something like that. And I think it was the Mordheim event that Alexander arranged, where we met also in Helsinki, when I kind of like found the old Warhammer Fantasy World and Old World again.
Mm-hmm.
And I did some like these old halflings for my Overlander gang, and I felt pretty good painting them. And I was thinking like maybe I should go back to painting Oldhammer stuff. And I had like bunch of old boxes and miniatures, like I think tens of kilos of kilograms of old lead.
Yeah.
And so I didn't run short with those. So I started painting those, and I felt pretty good in
It
myself.
had to felt great to finally start getting paint on some of that stuff and getting it out of boxes and just seeing it come to life per se.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So well, I was gonna say the notion of there's certainly some nostalgia to it, but I feel like a lot of the people, like certainly for us, like we didn't really interact with a lot of the models too much when we started. Like they were there, but like I never paid that much attention to all of it. So there is a huge wealth of stuff to like explore and look at that I feel at this point most people have never even seen. So like I almost feel like you going in, exploring them, painting them is giving them like sort of a new life. And I think people are now more and more getting excited to kind of take a closer look at a lot of these earlier models and stuff, because there is a lot to like and enjoy with them that would have been very easy to just ignore, I
They're
guess.
probably a lot more expensive on eBay now than they
They
were
are.
like,
Yeah, that's a shame.
yeah, because now
Yeah.
you're making it cool again. People want them.
Yeah, I think it was Alexander who once said to me that Kari, you should stop painting those because you are like raising the prices on all the markets. But yeah, jokes aside, there are like very many different routes that you can also pick when you are doing the Oldhammer. Of course, you can go to paint the Warhammer Fantasy Battle armies, or you can pick these old like scenario miniatures that cost like hundreds of dollars each. Just like one model, it costs like over 100 euros. So it's crazy. For example, the Terror of the Lichmaster campaign, the Heinrich Kemmler itself costs over 100 euros. So it's
My
crazy
gosh.
how much money you can actually put in the old metal.
Yeah.
But
What you really want is, like, every once in a while, at least in the United States, you'll walk into some old hobby store and they'll just have a ton of old blister packs for not
oh
that
my
much
god.
money, and that's what you crave.
It's like, give it all to me.
I'm buying all of it.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah. So Yeah, it's great.
It's often like $10 per blister.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Well, so yeah.
There actually was this one shop. I don't remember, was it in Portland or something like that. That this one of my Instagram follower was taking photos, and there was this huge blister wall
Oh my
in his
god.
shop, and
Yeah.
all the blisters were like $5 to $10, and they were like from the 80s and 90s, and was like, oh my god, you have to check if you have this and this and this, and
Yeah.
I actually was able to buy like 8 or 10 blister from that shop.
That's amazing. Well, so when I was in San Diego, I found an old a comic shop, and they had lots and lots of unopened blisters of like Rogue Trader models, just weird stuff, and I bought a lot of that. But I didn't buy all of it, which was probably a mistake. But yeah, so every so often, like there are a lot of, I guess, particularly in America, there are a lot of older shops that they've just held on to that stuff. They don't really know what it is anymore, and
Yeah,
that's what you have to look for.
yeah, that's
very best.
something I dream often. That
Yeah.
oh, there's this shop and there's this huge wall full of blister packs, and I go and grab the shopping cart and
Yeah.
stuff in the cart, and suddenly when I'm on the paying the card,
Yeah.
I just suddenly wake up, and I'm just it was
Damn
just
it.
a dream.
Damn it. No, I
Yeah.
understand that.
Yeah, but speaking of the Oldhammer, my current project, so to speak, is to make the first edition Space Hulk full metal,
Amazing.
which means replacing all the plastic miniatures with metal ones.
Yeah, you've made some amazing progress with that, and it's one of the things that I was surprised of. Those old metal Terminators, like they've gone through a few iterations, and I almost feel like the original ones I still feel they looked the best. Like their weapons
I mean, there's
are
the
the
really,
smallest.
really old, stupid
Oh.
ones, but the ones that were around for like actual Space Hulk, yeah, I think they were all the second edition Terminators, which honestly look about the same, but I still something about the version before I think is even slightly better. I mean, one aspect of it, I think their storm bolters and stuff are a little bit smaller, which that really pleases me. But
Yeah.
Anyone who follows us knows that we love smaller weapons.
But yeah, man, seeing all your Deathwing, like, man, that goes after my heart there. Dark Angels, in particular, the Deathwing, were always, like, growing up, were always my thing. And to see all these old Terminators look so good and really makes me think of that old Space Hulk game, the PC game with all the Deathwing. So
yeah, that
good.
was cool.
Yeah, that's the game is actually one of the source of inspiration for me to do the first edition Space Hulk the way I'm doing it. The intro in that PC game is just so amazing.
It's awesome. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Archangel's chapter, Deathwing Company.
Yeah, it's cool.
Lovely.
It's cool.
Yeah.
The little animation with all the Gene Stealers like coming out of the wall and the assault cannon like kicking up and just love awesome.
Captain coming with the power sword, die, and slashes the Gene Stealer into half.
Yeah,
it's so brutal and bloody, and Gibbs just fly around when the Gatling gun is. It's so amazing,
I love
and
it.
the music is so.
It's good.
Perfect.
Yeah, you can find. I think that's all up on YouTube somewhere where I would suggest people watch it. I don't know. Maybe you can still get the game on like good old games like GOG. Maybe they have modernized it such that it works on better computer software. But the game is pretty fun and it is very like claustrophobic.
Yeah,
it's hard. It was really hard. I remember when I was playing when I was a kid. I didn't pass the first mission. It was so hard.
Yeah.
Agreed. I was horrible at it, but that was, I don't know, part of the charm. It was kind of terrifying. I feel really conveyed the terror of being on some lonely space hulk in the middle of nowhere, where in space where no one can hear you scream.
Yeah. The metal Terminators are relatively like easy to acquire, but when it comes to metal Gene Stealers, those are like
Yeah. I
super
was gonna
rare.
ask you about them because, like, the plastic Gene Stealers have been around for a while. Like,
Yeah.
I don't even remember what the metal Gene models look like.
No, yeah, they're much harder to find. Like, I guess what is interesting, I guess there've just been so many printings of those older plastic Gene Stealers in the kind of dark blue plastic and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah, and metal ones are like if they pop up in the eBay, you have to pay like £15 per model, so it's
Yeah.
insane. And often they are missing like their one of their arms or something like that. So,
Yeah,
but if you count all the expansions to the first edition Space Hulk, you have to have 30 Gene Stealers.
That's a lot. That's
Yeah.
a lot.
So the base game comes with 20 Gene Stealers, and the Deathwing expansion comes with 10. So you have a total of 30.
Well, with any of the
Gene Stealers.
expansions, do they add like the Gene Stealer cultists and stuff like that? Are they in any of those?
Yeah, in the second
Okay.
expansion, the Gene Stealer expansion, there are the Gene Stealer cultists or hybrids.
Yeah, the hybrids and stuff.
Hybrids,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting journey to try to collect all the metal
Yeah.
Gene Stealers. I think I have 15 or 16.
That's
now.
pretty good.
Not bad.
How
I mean,
many
I guess
different-
that's
How many different sculpts are there?
There are 4, I think.
4.
Well, actually, there are like 2 different incarnations. There are those with the metal arms, and then the ones with the plastic arms.
Oh, okay.
You have a
So-
picture on Instagram of some of the new plastic Gene Stealers up against some of the metal Terminators, and those
Yep.
new plastic Gene Stealers are huge compared.
They
to
are
the
huge,
others.
and
Like,
yeah. When I put them together, I was like, my first plan was to like use the newer Gene Stealers to replace the monopose blue.
My God, yeah,
Plastic
they are
Gene
big.
Yeah, but when I put them together, I was like, this is not gonna work. So I have to
No.
go the hard way.
Well, that
Okay. Yeah.
will be
wow.
exciting once you finish it, or like even already, it's super exciting. Have you tried to play it at all with?
Yeah, I've tried the solo rules, and it's very good game to play alone.
Mhm.
The AI in the Deathwing expansion is it's relatively good
Yeah, okay, that's
to learn the
cool.
rules and so on. So I live in the location where there are not that many hobbyists around here. So
Yeah.
playing alone solo games are
The
kind
easiest.
of like a easiest
Yeah.
way to.
Yeah, I've played like a fair amount of Space Hulk in my time. I don't know. Is the first edition very different from like the other editions, or?
I think it's quite the same. I think one of the things that was changed at some point was the time limit. In the first
Okay.
edition, you have the 2-3 minutes time to use this for the Space Marine side, and I think in the second edition they were removed. They
Yeah, I think
removed
that is
this
true.
rule, and yeah,
I think
but
the time limit's good.
yeah,
Force you to be
it brings the the
attention.
yeah.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah, really, really great.
Well, I guess
Um,
we'll keep our eye out. If we find any more of the Gene Stealers or anything like that, we'll send them your way.
Much appreciated.
It's a noble fight.
Yeah, right. Getting all those Gribbly Gene Stealers.
Yeah.
I guess this maybe is changing pace a little bit, but could you talk a little bit about like your time with Iron Sleet and how that came to pass? Because I think it was at that time with like the Pilgrym event. That's when we first got to meet you, which was awesome. And yeah, and I think a lot of people maybe first came to your work around that time.
Yeah, Iron Sleet was first found when Mixula approached me and Mikko that if we were interested in like putting our forces together and starting our co-blocking. And back in the 2006-7 or 2009, the blogging was the thing for the hobbyists to come out and show their stuff.
It really was.
Now it's the Instagram, I think, more
Yeah.
or less. But back then the blogging was the thing, and yeah, we decided to put our blogs together with Mixula, and we started like I think we started to look some hobbies that were doing the same kind of stuff that we did, and then the Mixula's old friend Stefan, aka FPAOA, First Point Areas, came also in the Iron Sleet, and that was the time when we started to do these scenarios or these small campaigns that were like focused around the story, strong story, told around miniatures, and that's when the Pilgrym project also started. And I think the Pilgrym was one of the most successful and the biggest events I've ever been a part for more time. What Alexander did, but the Pilgrim was really like exciting project, and also like I think pushed many of our like creative minds to the limits. That when we had to like learn new things and try some new stuff and like be really creative, because there were so many very creative people involved in that like project, like you guys and the guys in the Nottingham and many other
Johan.
our like friends. And whenever anyone was like when someone published something that they had done for the project, you had to like think that, oh shit, I have to like do something even better, and that was like
yeah, it was
building up.
really exciting, and I think it was fun to have like it all kind of collected in one place and just seeing all that creativity. I think it was one of like the first times that we really tried to do sort of that Inc. 28 style stuff, and it really, I think, helped solidify that and sell that in our minds as being like kind of the most exciting way, or one of the most exciting ways to be involved in the hobby, where you can like just be super creative and follow sort of your own path for what you think is exciting and create interesting models and try to fit them alongside other warbands and so forth. Like, it's really fun.
Yeah, true. And also it was really nice to have the game in the in the heart of the Warhammer.
Yeah. I feel like if you would have told me like a couple years before, like or even just right when we were starting our blog, that we would go to Warhammer World, meet up with a lot of people, meet like John Blanche, meet Jess Goodwin, all those people, I wouldn't have believed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really, really fun.
Yeah. And also the Pilgrim was kind of like a bouncing blank for other projects that came along. like the Thorn Moons Crusade and Inquisitor and stuff like that. And the Thorn Moons Crusade was the point where I started to build up my Red Corsair army.
Yeah.
And it was that way. It was a really nice project also. And then when I think it was after that the COVID-19 came into play and started messing around with our plans, and I think that was the time also when I started to rethink about my hobby also, which things like what do I want to get out of it and what do I want to do with my hobby and stuff like that. And that was the time I started doing more of the Oldhammer stuff also. And maybe that was one of the reasons I parted with the Iron Sleet, because I felt like my Oldhammer stuff really didn't fit in the setting of Iron Sleet that much, even though that other guys they thought different. But I didn't see my co-brothers in Iron Sleet playing Oldhammer games with me. So I thought
give
about
them 10 more years and they'll be
yeah, I could have taken the challenge, but I thought it would be easier to just take my own path from that point on. And so I decided to go solo, so to speak.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's exciting. Like, and just having that extra freedom to like explore the stuff you're wanting to do, I think is nice. And I mean, and also it's not like you've cut ties with them. I'm sure it's just easier to explore your own creative projects this way, which I guess that kind of brings us to that. Like you've created a Patreon to like help support you, and you have tons of cool tutorials. Like you actually just released one showing how you paint those Deathwing that we were talking about, which is exciting. So I would certainly encourage people to go on Patreon and search Koltti. I think it's also linked from your Instagram account. If you want to see a bunch of cool tutorials and such, and follow along with your journey here, because I think, I don't know, it's worth it, and I it's neat to, I guess, see some of like the paints you use and how you go about things, because as we kind of mentioned earlier, you do have a pretty evocative and unique style that is hard to emulate, I think.
You're also, I would say, you're very prolific. Like, I am very impressed with how often you're posting new stuff up there. Even like if it's just a new model you're working on painting, like I appreciate it a lot. And just you have at least a few more thoughts about where your head is and what you're doing. And I think in general, I sort of like engaging with other hobbyists and kind of just hearing their thoughts about things, which I guess was one of the reasons why I like the blogging and stuff like that. Though now that that's it's not consumed as much by people, but this is another good way to kind of give back to the community and stuff, at least in some way.
Yeah, one of my main goals when I parted from Iron Sleet was to try to make my hobby kind of like a self-sufficient.
Yeah.
So I thought different like approaches how to do it, and we tried to Patreon back with Iron Sleet, and it felt kind of good, but also felt like there were like these different persons who did all the job, or most of the like publishing in the Patreon in Iron Sleet. But it was shut down because it came like too inactive, and it would have been unethical to charge patrons for like
I mean, it
I
can be
feel
hard to manage stuff like that.
A difficult thing, particularly if there are so many people involved, how you distribute that and so forth.
Yeah.
Like I think it's easier if you can just completely sort of steer that ship yourself, and it also can be it's easier for people to know what to expect, and I think
That's
that is
true.
also like a good thing.
Yeah, but it's still feels a lot of work to maintain the Patreon. It's there. You also always have to like think that is this like what I'm posting, is this valuable information for my followers and like that. And when you are like writing those tutorials, it's sometimes it goes very easy, but often not. My plan was when I was doing the Deathwing tutorial, I was also filming it with my camera to make a video, but after I started to edit it, I found out that most of the material that I did was out of focus, and I was like, a bummer. Oh shit! I have to like either redo it or do something different. So I decided to do it as a writing instead. But it's sometimes it's try and error which works and which doesn't, and there are a steady flow of incoming patrons on the account, but also they have some people who have decided to leave it also, but it's understandable. Some people just don't want to pay for something that I do, but it's okay. I understand it. And it's my main goal is also share as much information also free on Instagram, for example. So it's not maybe the Patreon is more like a sneak peek and the preview of what I'm doing and all the tutorials and more insight, and the Instagram is more like the the front seal or the front window of the shop, kind of like that.
Well, I think different people interact with Patreon in a different way. Like there are certainly people who, at least for myself, for instance, like I support a bunch of people, but it's largely just I will support them regardless of how much content or whatever they put out. It's mainly just I like their work and I would like to support them even in a small way. But there are other people who have wildly successful patrons, particularly like certain miniature painters that just have tons and tons and tons of different tutorials and videos and all sorts of stuff, which I think could be a good resource depending on like what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Has it helped your hobby thing become more self-sufficient? I could see at this point, if all of the models you want to try to buy are like €100, maybe there's no way it could become self-sufficient.
It has helped my hobby to be more self-sufficient, so to speak.
I feel it could also, if there are people excited about your stuff commenting, it could be some form of motivation too.
Yeah, it's a good motivation to keep on painting and keep on, doing the stuff I do, and it gives that small like panic to do stuff, to finish the stuff. Also,
do you have plans to try to do more video work? I know you have a YouTube channel that maybe had a few videos. Is that something you'd like to try? I know it is hard to film stuff. I've dabbled a little with it, and like keeping stuff in focus, and it's a mighty task.
It is.
Yeah, it's a big task when you have to like film it, and then you have to go to the editing room and start editing, and then do all the speaking and commentary and stuff like that. It's a lot of work, but I plan to do more videos in the future, one way or another.
Yeah.
It's also a good learning experience, I guess.
Yeah, and it's a good thing that there are also a possibility to do the text, or because I've got some comments from my friends that I wasn't really sure what you were talking about, but it was cool thing that you had this text also in the video. So subs. So yeah,
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
it's sometimes hard to you know put the audio in the videos when the English is your like second language, and you don't get to speak that so often aloud. So it's sometimes really hard to put in on record yourself and then listen it afterwards, and you sound like terrible. And,
Now I'm excited to see what comes of that, and like I think it is always nice to see it like in action like that. Although yeah, I think the process of like you will probably film like a huge amount of stuff, but then like you try to cut it down to like a 10-minute video. So like yeah, it's just so much editing. But you know, people have figured it out, I guess, and I'm sure you will in time.
yeah, there are very many good tutorial videos in Instagram, for example, when there's this very small time you can use to show what you are doing. So they are very efficient in doing it in the video, and it's very, very cool to see that people actually can do good tutorials in such a long, short time frame.
This is sort of not really following that line of questioning, but do you have any aspirations to build more terrain? Like, I'm not sure if it's something you've done a lot of, but you built a really great sort of castle board for the Mordheim 2019 event, which is like honestly perhaps the best board I've ever seen. So I feel like anything you put your mind to is going to be awesome. But yeah, is that something that you want to do again? Or is it like, I have no space in my life for boards?
Yeah, I have no space in my house for my boards. So
Yeah,
that
that I understand that.
But yeah, the Mordheim table is actually in my outhouse or garage
Okay.
in boxes, so it's not in display, which is a shame, kind of. But yeah, I have some plans to do some more terrain. Firstly, I have these Oldhammer wood elves and orcs armies. The wood elves are almost ready, and the orc army is 50% ready. But after I'm done with the orcs, I have this idea of doing this small campaign for those two forces in this thick forest board. So that's something I'm planning, and doing those wood bits is kind of a interesting research thing to do, because I don't want to use that much of the ready-made terrain like the Citadel Warhammer forest or stuff like that. But I like to do it more like myself, and I've tried to be sourcing all kind of like roots and plants outside which resemble at least somehow wood or tree or something like that. And yeah, that's something I'm doing at the moment, and trying to find something suitable for that game board. Also, when you are playing like with the metal miniatures, the board itself needs to be also considered, because I don't want to, if you like toss your miniature on the table and it's sand or something like that, it removes the paint from the metal miniatures. So it needs to be somewhat soft surface also. So many kind of different like things that you have to take in consideration when doing board like that. But also, I have this Rogue Trader Battle at the Farm game table in my mind, and doing some scenery for that also is going to be interesting.
Well, you painted like a ton of the Marines and stuff for that, right?
Yeah, I've done the Space Marine side, Imperial, Crimson Fists.
Yeah,
which is 15 plus Pedro Cantor miniatures. So I need to paint the 21 orcs, space orcs. Also.
Okay, that's
well, you have a lot of
rad.
experience painting orcs, so
yeah. Thank God.
Yeah.
And thank you. I also
miniatures?
got a couple of orcs from you guys. So
Well, some
they
of
are going
those, some of the orcs that I sent you were the ones that I bought new at that one comic shop.
yeah, those
Yeah.
will be also included in the orc force. So
Yeah, that's cool. Well, yeah, well, that'll be neat to see. Like, and I think it's also for like newer hobbyists, kind of. You can sort of showcase some of the older stuff that people didn't really know about or like largely ignored. So I think that's kind of fun. And
It
yeah,
was
and
continue.
yeah, also to see the miniatures in action, because that's always my goal when I paint whatever I paint. I want to be able to play
that's
with
cool.
miniatures at some point. I don't so to speak paint showcase miniatures at all. I want to play them because that's the main function for miniature. At least I think so.
That's cool. Yeah, it was fun for the one Crimson Fist, the little apothecary. When you were painting that model, I was painting the same model around
Yes.
that as a Dark Angel,
Yeah.
and it was fun because I think it was maybe the second Warhammer 40,000 miniature we ever purchased. Like just when we were, I don't know, pretty young, we discovered the hobby and just got like a couple random blister packs, and one of the first had that little or two apothecary models, one being the one that you painted with just the bolter, and it was great to go back to it and try to paint it better than I did
Yeah.
like over 20 years ago.
It's fun to see how you have developed your style in the time from those teenage years to these
Yeah,
days.
it's true.
I'm glad we still have a picture of the old Dark Angel painting of that. It's on Instagram somewhere. It looks horrible.
Well, I
But
have the other one too. I think I should maybe try to paint that one too.
I think I have that one. I think
Yeah.
I should try and paint that one.
Yeah,
so
you
we'll
should.
each
It has like
paint
a weird
one.
looking chain sword and a hand flamer that's actually small.
Yeah.
yeah, it's
times.
very interesting to see those images in the Instagram where there's this comparison where people show that they're like a miniature when they were like 10 years old, and then they show their miniature from the past few weeks, and the difference is like often very like
striking.
huge. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to do that. Maybe I'll try and paint that apothecary this year because they're cool.
Yeah, they're fun. The little beakies.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we've been chatting for about an hour now. Maybe we could think about wrapping this up. But I guess with that in mind, are there any projects that you're like working on now that you're particularly excited? Obviously, the Space Hulk stuff, but is there anything else or something that people should look forward to?
Yeah, the Space Hulk stuff is on the table at the moment, but I have plenty of Oldhammer miniatures on the line. The one is the Undead Army that hopefully really gets some boost this year. But I'm also going to start painting the old Talisman miniatures for the second edition Talisman.
The board game.
Yeah, the board game. So it's going to be an interesting journey also.
That's cool.
Like and really looking forward to whatever this year brings.
I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, that sounds great. But I guess, yeah, people should obviously follow you on Instagram at Koltti. We'll put, some links in like the show notes, link to the Patreon and stuff as well, which I would also encourage people to join if you want some excellent tutorials to help you in your painting journey to become a better painter. And yeah, it's always good to see how people approach things.
Yeah.
I have a challenge for you guys.
Okay.
Okay.
So each of you, me included, will pick up a Space Marine from Rogue Trader era and
Mhm.
paint it in one of the classic,
That's a good
chapters.
idea. Okay, well, I can certainly try and do that.
Yeah. I'll have to look through. Like, it might be a good opportunity to find a fun old Space Marine.
Yeah, and it's they are like rather easy or like fast to paint because they are mostly the armor and
They're small too. They're mostly just a
Yeah.
single piece model, so you don't have to worry about like painting underneath stuff. And
yeah.
Hmm.
okay, we'll have
Yeah,
to
well,
see
I
how many
should
we
be able
still
to do
have.
that. Now I need to scour eBay to try to find the perfect the perfect model. Yeah, well that sounds fun. That sounds fun. I guess with that, do you have any last things you'd like to say? Anything you'd like to plug or anything of that nature?
Oh, well, I would like to thank you guys for having me here
Yeah, no, our
on your
pleasure.
podcast. And I'd like to thank my patrons who are willing to sacrifice their money to, to keep me rolling. And yeah,
No,
that's
yeah,
about
I
it.
think it's awesome, and I think it's nice that there is an opportunity to support you along this journey and to continue to develop as a painter and show people that all these lead miniatures can actually look as good as any modern Games Workshop model.
Yeah,
So it's a noble goal.
it is.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Well, yeah. Well, thank you again for joining us. It was really fun chatting with you. And I guess we hope to be able to continue to talk with you again soon. And yeah, thanks for listening, everybody.